Hey guys, another Plant Strong Fitness question of the day here in our group. Sarah's asking about fasting. She says, I see people posting about it. What exactly do you do this for and for how long? Is it like a physiological reset button or something? So that's a great question, Sarah. Intermittent fasting became popular a couple years ago with some books and ebooks being released about it. Most people, it's done for two reasons, usually either for fat loss or for spiritual reasons. And if people are doing it spiritually, they're doing it to clear their mind and to kind of detox their body and to get to a new place mentally and spiritual. That's going to be an extended fasting. They're usually doing at least several days, even into like weeks of not eating anything at all and just having water. But the more common thing and the thing that you see people post about in this group is intermittent fasting for fat loss. And that's where they're doing a certain number of hours where they don't eat any food at all, they just drink water, and then they have a certain amount of hours in the day that they eat. Most people start with a 16-hour fast window and 8-hour eating window. So that means for 16 hours they're fasting, 8 hours they're eating, but that doesn't mean like in a day. So, for example, people who've never fasted before think that they're not going to eat anything at all for an entire day. But what they don't realize is that that fasting window is typically going to be spread over your sleeping period. So if you're fasting for 16 hours a day, 8 of those hours you might be sleeping, and then 8 hours of wake fasting. So it's really broken up so you don't feel like you go an entire day without eating, also because you spread it over 2 days. So for an example, you might start eating at noon, and then you're going to eat from noon to 8. That's an 8-hour feeding window. Then from 8 o'clock at night till noon the next day, you don't eat any food, you just drink water. Now that really isn't that hard to do if you think about it. 8 o'clock at night is pretty late. So then you go to bed, then you wake up. All you're doing really is skipping breakfast if you normally have breakfast. So it's not that hard to do a 16-8 fast. Then people, and I recommend 16 hours, I say that's like the minimum for intermittent fasting because that's the time that you really see changes in your hormones and changes in your body from the fast. That's the point that you really hit like, okay, it makes a difference to be fasting. So I say if you're going to try it, start with 16 and 8 schedule. Then you can bump it up and go to 18 hours fasting, 20 hours fasting, 24 hours, even up to 36 hours. I don't recommend doing much more than 36 hours if you're doing it for fat loss because you get to that point of diminishing returns. You get to the point where your hormones start to downshift again and you're not getting the benefit that you want as far as fat loss and muscle building. It's a little bit harder to build muscle on intermittent fasting, although it can be done. There are some benefits. Like I said, once you're at that 16-hour window, you start to get benefits of growth hormone changes and increases in your growth hormone, but then after too long of a fast, it diminishes. So there's like that sweet spot. And sometimes it's harder, I think, to gain muscle on intermittent fasting because with a small eating window, people struggle to get enough calories to build the muscle. I think that's often the problem. It's not that you can't do it on intermittent fasting. It's just that when you have a shorter amount of time to eat the number of calories you need to support muscle growth, most people struggle to get that done. If you're a big guy, like I could never eat, let's say I was really trying to put on a lot of size and I was eating like an enormous amount of food, like 3,500 calories a day. In 4-hour window, that's a lot of food to eat. I could never do it. But for a guy like Fraser, he can eat huge meals at a time. He can still eat 4,000 calories in 4 hours and be fine. And that would support muscle growth. So if people struggle to gain muscle, it's usually because they're not eating enough calories in their feeding window. For fat loss, it works. I think it works really well. I do find a difference, and on my experience, Fraser and I doing it and also using it with clients, that men get a better response fat loss-wise. Women, it does help them lose fat most of the time. I think it's a much more individualized thing, though, because of the different lifestyle of women, the way we handle things emotionally. It changes our hormones, and the fasting works a little bit different hormonally with women than men. So men will usually see just a more dramatic effect. And that's usually the case in fat loss anyway. But anyway, so that's my experience with intermittent fasting. The other thing I'll say that I find intermittent fasting works really well for women is in getting in control of your eating habits. I think that intermittent fasting is great because it makes you aware of when you're really actually hungry and when you're just emotional eating or eating out of habit, eating because you're bored. If you've never done intermittent fasting before, it's great to at least try it and get that experience to really connect and learn about your body a little bit. So that's it. And as far as the results of it go, just try it for yourself and see how it works for you. All right. Great question, Sarah. I know a lot of people are wondering those kind of things, so thanks for asking, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye.